Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. I am an ex-banker and current technologist, and what I do is advise companies of all sizes on how to overcome the biggest challenges of their growth. Those tend to be cultural and transformation challenges for my big company clients and pricing and go-to-market challenges for the smaller clients. But it's all one question: how do we compete in a digital economy? The main takeaways of the book are twofold. One is that despite 15 years of digitization, financial services is behind every other sector in the economy. That is not debatable, it is a fact. And it is not a technological problem, it's a human problem. It's structures and governance and ways of working and ways of rewarding that get in the way of making the decisions we need to make at the pace we need to make them. That realization leads to the second big takeaway of the book, which is what people made, people can change. And the book spends quite a lot of time giving very practical, very specific, very actionable advice on what we can each do at an individual, team, and organizational level. Some are easier to implement than others, but they're all immediately actionable to make more battle-worthy organizations in a changing economy. So finance is looking at generative AI and is having exactly the same emotional reactions that we had as an industry to the last technology adoption cycle, and we're making all the same mistakes. Observe 3 mistakes. Number 1, we look at it and think, I am new to this technology, therefore this technology is new to the world. Not true. What we now think of generative AI is fairly new, but large language models, machine learning are 30, 40 years in the making. The second is, if I came to it now and it looks big and scary, it must be fully formed. Therefore, I must understand and control what's in front of me. But the reality is generative AI is only just beginning, and trying to control it is absolutely the wrong attitude. The problem of leading with risk is number 3, we find ourselves asking all the wrong questions. So rather than training our teams how to use generative AI, what questions to ask, how to validate if the information is rich and balanced, how to test and train the algorithm, all we're doing for now is spending time in an isolated lab style environment trying to create upside and banning the use of AI tools across the organizations everywhere else. Very familiar pattern of reactions, but the reality is the risk first refusal, believing that all I see is all there is, and trying to sort of shoehorn it into our organizations is the wrong attitude, and we should know it by now. We need to learn how to ask the right questions, and that applies to fintechs as well. So I would say that when you work as an external advisor, you already have a massive advantage of a leader who's humble enough to ask for help. So you're already on a good trajectory. But I would say that no matter whether you're a big company or a small company, the pressures are not identical, but they exist. Whether you're running against a runway and you're worried about raising capital, or you're running a regulated business and you have different types of pressures, the challenges of competing in an ever-changing economy are the same, and they are human. So the first one is blind spots. If you're a leader, everyone in your organization looks to you for answers, and you will absolutely fall into that sort of paternal guiding view. The risk is yours, the decision is yours, but who's going to help you see your blind spots? It is an extremely powerful trait of leaders who know how to surround themselves with either colleagues or advisors who help them bring mistakes forward, help them avoid unforced errors, help them see through those blind spots. The second thing is habits. Habits set in so quickly, and every single one of us will bring some habits from our old organizations, from the way we prefer to work. So those habits mean that some thorny work might get left behind. Some less urgent behaviors might step in, or the tendency to cut corners and not do things in a particular way. So the second thing everyone needs to be mindful of is, do we have the right habits? Are we culturally cultivating the right habits? Are people doing the right thing when nobody's watching? And the third and most important one is fatigue. We have been on a digital transformation journey for almost 20 years. That is a lot. It is exhausting, mentally exhausting, to be constantly on the lookout for the next thing. So it's absolutely vital for leaders, no matter how big their organization, to manage that mental load for their teams, to manage the expectation of what you expect people to do, manage, learn, and change on any given day, because you can't be sprinting forever. Very good question, and one I find myself answering with my institutional clients a lot. I personally think that the language of innovation is not helpful anymore. And I say this as someone who has been a chief innovation officer twice for big global institutions. At the beginning of this journey, we needed to learn. And we needed to learn fast, because there were a lot of new things, new business models, new technologies coming at us, and we needed to work out how to work them out. That has been a success. Actually, across the industry, we have developed the ability to learn. Great. But what we need now is less that and more the application. The challenge we have now is not about learning. Actually, we've gotten pretty good at that. The challenge we have is prioritizing, determining which new systems, which new technologies, which new tool sets we need to apply to our job, and focus. And so I would say that the adaptation to modern technology is less about innovation and newness and more about competitiveness. If you think about some of the most successful digital ventures, they didn't see themselves as innovation ventures. They saw themselves as digital businesses. And that is a pretty major shift, because if you think about it like that, it answers the second part of your question, which is, this isn't about playing and breaking things and moving fast. It is not about that at all. It's about continuing in the line of the business you're in, which in our case, in our industry, is highly regulated, risk-first approach, using best-in-class technologies. So risk has to be baked in from the get-go, as should ideas of cost, ideas of stability. We can't experiment anymore. The time for that is past. We need to build, test, verify, and release. I change my mind every now and again as to the answer to that. Sometimes I think that the bank of the future will be much more concentrated, because we have seen a consolidation trend. Because frankly, quite a lot of banking only makes sense if you do it at a really, really large scale. It's not profitable unless you do it at large scale. So part of me thinks banking is going to be a lot more consolidated, using slightly cheaper technical stacks, because one day we will switch off the mainframes. That is my dream. So it will be easier to deliver services at a cheaper footprint, at a more affordable price point for clients. That is the most realistic and not the most exciting form. When I'm feeling particularly optimistic about the world, I am seeing a trend in technology that allows us to have swift, stable, personalized, data-rich services that can be embedded across whatever it is we do, and regulators the world over that are beginning to see their function very differently. So the bank of the future could be completely unbundled, because the technology and the connectivity would allow the regulator to control and manage and protect the consumer at an activity level, wherever it happens. So in this unbundled world, you would be regulated for whatever it is you do, like an EMI is now, without having a full bank. And the idea of the big, bulky, global, universal bank might not exist anymore. Now, there are quite a lot of vested interests standing in the way of that not happening. And I'm not necessarily saying that it is preferable, but I can absolutely see a world where the banking service is regulated at that functional level, and the advantages of having a full bank might not be there the same way that there are today. I'm in the process of discussing a couple more advisory roles that I'm very, very excited about and hope I can announce them early in the new year. Companies that are doing really interesting work in different verticals. I like to keep the mix of different technologies and different businesses I'm involved in high. I find it keeps me sharp. And I'm also working on my second book. In fact, I'm working on a complete draft now, so it should be a matter of, I won't say weeks, months before I complete the manuscript and give it over to my publisher.